Hey there, and welcome to the Transparently Jordan podcast, where I'll be talking with a new guest each week, and we'll be covering topics in health, fitness, lifestyle, and so much more. So stick around and let's get into today's episode.
This is Radiant Voices Media.
I don't want to feel ashamed of what I'm doing and who I've become. Being in such a stressful environment, like I said before, with staffing, I don't want to be ashamed of how I speak to my staff or how I allow them to work. I want to be someone that they can come to talk about. Doesn't have to be work related.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode. Now, this is kind of a special episode because it is one of my very rare video episodes. I actually recorded today's. I am trying to be a bit more consistent with my camera. I am trying to make sure that it's charging and I have enough memory. So if you are watching or listening on Spotify or YouTube, this may or may not be video format. If it's not and it's just audio, then I kind of got frustrated and didn't make the video. I am super excited for today's episode because today's episode is one of the rare ones where it's nothing to do with health and fitness. And I know I have had a few recently, with Jordan, with Ozzy, with Cindy Lou, and just some amazing guests that have come on and haven't been health and fitness related. Don't get me wrong, I love that content. This podcast is mainly a wellness and lifestyle podcast. And I think a lot of the reason why I have had a lot of health and fitness topics on here is because that's a passion that I have. Me being a physiotherapist, I used to be a personal trainer. I have been in the fitness community for pretty much as long as I can remember. So, of course, when you have a passion and when you have that experience, of course, I'm going to have some topics that are mainly health and fitness. But I think this podcast, when I think of what I wanted out of this podcast, it was more than just a health and fitness podcast. I don't want it to be in just that box. Again, yes, I do cover a lot of those topics, but I think of this more as a wellness and lifestyle podcast because I like to have guests on here that cover, again, business and cover topics that might not get covered a lot. And I kind of draw inspiration. It's funny because in this episode, Bailey, whom is coming on, is the owner of the Dunes Cafe here in Adelaide. He chats about drawing inspiration from other cafes and social media, and I guess inspiration that I draw from this podcast I started back in 2020. It's been nearly 5 years now, and I've listened to many podcasts even before that, but I think the Skinny Confidential, him and her podcast, for example, that's probably one of my favorite podcasts. It sounds a little bit funny. I know men listening are like, oh, what, the Skinny Confidential? But it's actually a podcast that everybody can draw something from. That's why there is Michael and Lauren both on it, husband and wife. And they just have anybody and everybody on the podcast and cover topics in anything and everything. Yes, a lot of health and fitness and wellness topics, but they cover business, they cover social media, they cover skin, they cover, just topics that kind of break the barrier and that not everybody talks about. Recently, I listened to a podcast where they covered topics on what was it? I'm going blank now. Topics on like plastic surgery and, just little different niche topics that, again, you don't often get. And that is kind of the inspiration that I have for this podcast. I want to cover topics that are a little bit more niche and have these conversations with guests that come on that that you don't get, in a gym, or you don't get here and there. So I'm quite excited for today's episode because, again, I have Bailey, who is 22-year-old business owner. He owns a cafe, quite a big cafe. It is, a fully operational cafe, coffee, food, full menu. And I just kind of wanted to have Bailey on here because I am a customer. I probably go to this cafe 2 or 3 times a week and love it. Amazing coffee, amazing food, amazing vibes there. And having a 22-year-old, have this product and have this service that people use is quite amazing to me. And I kind of wanted to have him on for a while now, and I am glad that he took the time to come on and chat with me about kind of the things that we don't think about as consumers and as customers, kind of behind the scenes of cafes and how they're run, the things that kind of he had to focus on when purchasing things and making coffee and, I guess, staffing and things like that. So this episode is, again, a bit different. It is not health and fitness, but it does, I guess, cover and it does align with what this podcast is all about. So no life updates for me. I just wanted to make that little, I guess, spiel for any new listeners, even, and old listeners that are kind of thinking, oh, what's this podcast? I know on Apple Podcast and on Spotify and some of the other ones, I'm kind of put in the health and fitness section of those services. But again, I think this podcast is so much more than that. I cover so much more than that. And there's always topics for anybody and everybody, whether it be men, women, whether I have men or women on here covering topics. I think everybody can draw something. So hope you enjoyed today's episode, and let's get started. All right. Well, welcome, Bailey. Thanks for coming on the show today. How are you going today?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Had a busy day?
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah.
Pretty cruisy.
Yeah, that's good. So, Bailey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm 22 years old, and I'm the owner of the Dunes Cafe that just opened up in Hendon there at the end of West Lakes Boulevard. Yeah. I pretty much, at the moment just working pretty much non-stop, trying to establish myself as a decent sized cafe and try and get a nice client base to really start getting ready to go for the summer coming up, which will be pretty busy hopefully. So,
yeah. Oh, sweet. Awesome. So you spend a lot of time at the cafe, I assume, and you're kind of there 24/7?
Yeah, pretty much. During working hours, I'm there almost every day of the week. I get a bit of a break here and there, but when you first start in a business, you just have to work it until you establish yourself, and then hopefully in time I can pay someone else to do it. Yeah. And that's the goal. And
then go from there. Yeah. So you're from Adelaide, are you?
I'm from Country SA. I lived up in Roxby Downs for my whole childhood. Yeah. And that's actually how I got the name The Dunes. Yeah. That was the cafe up there. Cool. When I was growing up. So I wanted to keep it sort of something for me. Yeah. And base it around what my life experience. Yeah. So that's how that name came apart. I moved here in 2017 and to finish my school. And once I finished school, I sort of been bouncing around different other jobs until I started this. Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you want to open a cafe? Where did that kind of come from?
I worked at a little cafe out in Semaphore. I don't know if you know Noonies at the beach, the one by the train station there. Yeah. I worked there for a good couple of years, just on the weekends while I was at school. I've also done a bit of work in the mines. I've done landscaping. I've done pretty much every type of work you could do. Yeah. And that lifestyle is just so good compared to everything else I've experienced. Yeah. And it's something that I enjoy. I take pride in making nice coffee and presenting myself as someone like a face of a business. I think it's something down the track I look at as something that I take lots of pride in.
Yeah, sweet. Awesome. So I guess that's the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because, you know, you're 22 years old. You've started this business, and anytime that I go there, it's always quite busy, and, you know, it's growing. So that's quite good. I know you expanded, didn't you? Bigger location recently.
I had a smaller one for a year before I started the big one. While that wasn't too good financially, it's something that I'm going to look back at as a great learning period. I learned how the behind the scenes of how to run a business, which is so much more goes into it than you think, with just ordering food, getting the right things in the door. Just getting pricing right. That's the one thing that's extremely hard to do, is making sure your margins are correct, so you're making money on things. But then I hate charging people for things that I don't think are worth that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's the hard thing. But I guess that's, I don't know, it's where you gotta find the balance between business and that, you know, moral kind of compass, I guess, which is difficult, I think.
It is,
Yeah. So how did the process start? You know, you started this first cafe a year ago, or, you know, the smaller one. How did that kind of come to be?
Really, it came. Something I've always wanted to do, but I started it with one of my friends. And it just came across of a conversation one time, and it's just something that we we impulsively did it, and it's turned out pretty well for me in the end. But I like to think of myself as someone that likes to take some risks, and starting a business, especially the new one, is a pretty big risk financially for someone my age. But yeah, the benefits of a risk like that down the track hopefully will pay off. But yeah, the smaller one was something I started with my friend, and now it's just me. But it's not for everyone, and that's what I found out in this. Is some people it's more of a like a chore to do. That's what I found in the end. But for me, I enjoy it, and that's why I've started a new one and try to branch out as best as I can. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And when you were opening up this cafe, what were some things that you had to think of?
You know, I know it can be quite daunting. You're opening this thing where people are going to come and going to purchase coffee and purchase food and whatnot. So what were things that you kind of had to plan and had to purchase right away, and how did all of that come to be?
First thing that really needs to be on point is obviously the coffee.
Yeah.
Because that's something that someone's going to go to regardless. If you have good coffee, you're going to get customers. If you take pride in what you do, people are going to come back. So that's what I've learnt so far. That's the main thing that I wanted in the new place, was a good big coffee machine. And I got one top of the range from a coffee distributor, which I got a pretty good deal on. So that was a good starting point. And then it's just like your tables and chairs, little bits and pieces here and there that you wouldn't think of. But in the end, they add up. And trying to find different things from different places took a long time to sort out and get things that I wanted to make it the vibe that I wanted. And my vibe at the new place is big, open, simple. Because the small place was so small that I felt so crammed, and it was so dark. So the big windows, lots of natural light, open space. Yeah, that's what I planned on doing, and I think I've done that. But yeah, and
it looks quite good. You know, I go there all the time, you guys, and I live across the street from the old location, and I went to that one too. And you know, the new location, exactly that, is quite open. It's quite spacious, and you know, you just have a different feel from the natural light. Like, it's more inviting than the old one kind of was, because of, you know, like you were saying, the darkness and feeling so crammed and whatnot. So yeah, that's definitely kind of a good testament to you. When you're, let's start with the coffee, for example, when you're kind of I guess, making coffee and deciding what beans to purchase and, how to make decent coffee and whatnot, what were kind of things that you had to decide and had to look through? Did you look at a few different beans, or what was that process for you like?
I looked at a few different ones.
Yeah.
For me, I wanted the salesman that I sat with. For me, I wanted someone that related to me, sort of in an age way. So there's the distributor that I have. It's a young guy like me, based in Melbourne, really popular in Melbourne. Melbourne's the coffee centre of the world, so I wanted something from Melbourne because you get that sort of nice smooth taste, and you don't get that really bitter aftertaste, which I just hate in a coffee when I go somewhere. They also hooked me up pretty good with coffee machine, like I said before. And then pricing wise on my bags of beans, they hooked me up pretty good. So it came down to what was best for me, both financially and then on the outside as well. Just having someone that I can give a phone call to, and just doesn't have to always be about business. Like, he wants to know how I am, how the business is going, but then also how I am personally.
Yeah.
So that's something that I wanted, something that I got in the end, really.
Yeah, that's quite important, especially when you have this relationship with something so important. I guess you want to feel A, great about it, and then B, like you were saying, have that relationship with the person that you're going to be working with longer term. When I guess you're learning to make a decent cup of coffee and whatnot, where did you learn that, and where did you learn the skill? I know you were saying that you've worked in cafes in the past, but I think coffee is a hard thing to come by, and a good cup of coffee is a good thing to come by. So how did that skill come to be?
It is a lot harder than the average person would think. There's lots that actually goes into it. Timing of every single shot, weighing every single shot, putting the right shots in the right size cup, making sure the milk temperature is exactly the right temperature. Otherwise, it's going to burn, or it's going to be too cold. So there's actually lots that goes into it, and it's a skill and an art that takes time. And it's definitely not easy to do, especially when you're working in a cafe and you have to learn your latte arts and you're getting the right things at a quick pace. I think working in a cafe, you learn to adapt to working pretty quick all the time, which is, especially on a weekend or a busy day, it's non-stop, which the days go quick, but you just find yourself making coffees at a pretty quick rate. But that's when if you do it too quick, you forget all the little things that goes into it. And like I said before, it's weighing your shots. I do my shots, I did 22 grams per shot. So it makes a difference if it's 21.9. It makes a difference in the coffee taste. And me, now that I know, I can taste that. So even my timing, so for example, a double shot, my machine runs at 26 to 30 seconds per shot. So if it runs at 31 seconds, I'm not using it. So it needs to run in that time for me to serve it and be happy with what I'm serving. If it runs over, it's going to taste burnt, and doesn't matter what you do with the milk, it would taste burnt. Under, it would taste bitter, have a really bad aftertaste. And once you know that stuff, you'll never be able to drink a coffee again without having it run in between the nice spots. And it's been annoying for me, but it's good in a way.
I guess as, consumers, we don't think about things like that. And you have this different mindset now that you're an owner, and that you have this knowledge. There are, I guess, coffee snobs out there that do know this stuff and do know the differences of taste and whatnot. And it's quite interesting because I find that, in life and when you own a business and whatnot, you probably have to tailor things to, those snobs or the people that are a bit on the higher end and know their coffee. If you have someone like myself that doesn't know shit, I know a decent cup of coffee, but not as much as probably some people that can taste the different profiles and things like that. It's quite a testament to cafes that take that time and that I guess have that knowledge, really. let's move on now to the food, because that's another big part of, cafes and whatnot. How did that come to be? So what was the process about, building a menu, and I guess what things you wanted to add to the menu? How did that all evolve over time?
For me, I wanted to just keep it nice and simple at the start, and that's what I've done with my first menu. Just your classic, lots of eggs, smashed avo, eggs Benedict, things like that you're going to see at every cafe that you go to. I'm working on a summer menu at the moment with a few different things and a few different changes that I'm going to drop in a couple days to go forward in the summer period. That's just things that I've learnt to do over time, and I'll keep adapting the menu every chance I get, just to change things up and keep people fresh. Because there's only so many times you can have a smashed avo from the same place, so you got to keep switching it up and looking around at different cafes. And I get lots of inspiration from other cafes on what they do. So eventually, I want to go down the sandwich way, because that's really a wave at the moment. But I've got to invest in a bit more time into getting that right, because I don't want to half do things. I want to know what I'm doing first so I can sell it, because if I half do things and put it out half doing, it comes back on my face. So that's one thing that I've learnt, just to do things right, get it done, and then sell it. But yeah, it's a hard thing to do, to set a menu, because like you said before, the coffee snobs versus food snobs are the big ones. And to them, they notice every little thing. And it only takes a couple 1-star reviews on Google, and it turns things upside down.
Yeah, for sure. But I guess it's very different when you have like this front-facing business, you have direct people come in, people see it, people can review and whatnot, versus something that might be online or whatnot, and it's a different type of product. I guess you do have to, like you were saying, take the time when you're putting out these products firsthand, because you can put something out online half-ass and people won't really know. But when you're doing it with food or with something people are consuming, and some people, coffee, food is like, in my opinion, a necessity. Food is, of course, but coffee probably isn't. But for some people it is. Like, you need to have this time frame, and you need to do things right. So it's interesting to hear that side of things from a business owner. What does the behind the scenes look like when you are trying to, I guess, order things, and what kind of things do you prepare for in regards to like the amounts of food that you order, or this and that? What does all of that look like?
That is one thing that I still haven't got my head around at the new place. It's taken me so long to figure out the amount of food that I need to order a week, because every week's different. So I could be extremely busy on the weekend, and then I'll order more, and then it'll go to waste. So I've got to find a middle there, but I have a pretty good setup with my ordering. I got a good deal with a food business. They supply me everything, which is something that I wanted to do, because getting 4 different deliveries from 4 different companies on the same day isn't ideal. So I found a nice company, Forest Foods, that I use, and they do a delivery every Tuesday and Thursday for me. And I just hop on my phone. There's an app called Ordermentum that I order from. There's pictures, descriptions of everything that I want to try or order. At the moment, I'm just ordering the same thing on a weekly basis, but it's just the amount of stuff. For example, eggs, spinach, bacon, even paper towels, hand wash, all comes from the same place, which is good. It also saves a bit of money on not having to have different things coming from different spots.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I worked in a restaurant for a couple of years down in Glenelg, and that was something that I know just working at the restaurant was always an issue as well. Ordering things, maybe like, extra chicken one weekend, but then that weekend you're not busy or whatnot. So it is probably something that I can imagine be quite difficult and take a lot of time. When you are planning, I guess, location that you wanted to open, and planning kind of kind of the marketing and, you know, the logo and whatnot, because it did change from the old to the new location. What was that thought process, and what were kind of things going through your mind with that move?
Uh, it's just I wanted to be in a space where there wasn't as much competition as where I was. Semaphore Road, 500 cafes. So you can really, if I don't have a seat, then there's a seat 2 doors down. Where I am now is a good spot. Lots of parking. There's always people there. Next door to a gym, which is really the reason that I went to that spot. It's a nice little shopping hub. So there's an electrical company in there, a bathroom company. So there's lots of different things in the little hub that is appealing to someone with a cafe, because especially, for example, I'm next door to the bathroom display place, and someone that's going to go spend 90 grand on a bathroom, it takes time for them to write up the contract. So head over to me, sit down, have half an hour, have something to eat, have a coffee, head back. So that's something that I've learnt to do with other businesses around me, is get to know them, the owners, talk with them, and just get a good relationship with them, because they could be keeping me open. For example, the gym would be half my business at the moment, just off people that have just finished a session. They want to come sit down, have a coffee, even a cold drink or something to eat. So yeah. It really, it's just making a good relationship with people around you is what I've learned.
Yeah, no, that's quite important, and it is a great location. It's on that main, I don't even know the roads here in Adelaide, but it is on a main strip, like it's on my way to work and whatnot, so that's important factors, I would assume, as well. When you are learning all of this, or when you're trying to go through this, was it something that, you know, you've been learning along the way, or, you know, did you take any business courses or anything like that? How did you kind of learn the process of having to do, you know, the finances and all of this type of stuff?
I've learned on the go. I don't really recommend doing that. It's so much to think about all the time, and for me, now that I've got proper staff and a proper cafe, in a sense, I've got to do all my staff's wages. I've got to pay all their tax. I've got to pay all their super, and that's stuff that I didn't learn until I sort of made myself learn. So it's taken a lot of time to get that right, because it's something that's so important in keeping my staff happy in a case, and then keeping me happy by making them happy so they work for me. Because one thing I try and do with my staff is give them a nice environment to work in. And coming from experience where I didn't really like where I was, it's hard to work in a place you don't like. And yeah, me, even though it's stressful on the outside, I try and help them on the inside, so they have a nice spot to work. But yeah, on the outside, there's a lot to think about and a lot to do to make the business run, which a lot of people don't see. But it's a little bit more than making coffees.
Yeah, I appreciate that too, because I think a lot of business owners probably forget the staff and things like that. And you know, a happy staff keeps the ship running, but it also, I think, in the long term, is a lot cheaper, you know, for staff retention versus hiring new staff all the time, training them, you know, missing out on all of those margins. So I appreciate that, because I've worked in places that I've hated before, and you know, I'm the type of person, if I don't like it, I'm gone in a month or in a week. It doesn't really matter to me. So that's quite important. But when, I guess, you are choosing staff and when you are looking for, you know, a team, really, what were things that you had in the back of your mind when you were interviewing and going through that process?
Depending where they're working is depending on what I am looking for. For example, I just have a few new people at the moment, one that works front of house and one that works back of house. People that work front of house, I'm looking for that bubbly personality, someone that's loud, which goes a long way with people in cafes, because if you come in, the staff don't greet you, you make yourself sit down instead of them telling you, oh, how are you going? It goes a long way, especially with the older demographic, which you see a lot in cafes. You walk through the door, I want someone that's going to greet them, ask them how their day was, ask them if they'd like a glass of water just to get them started, if they want a menu. All those little things, they make people come back. But it's a bit different out the back. Someone that can learn quick and someone that can work quick, because in the kitchen it's pretty hectic on the weekends. Getting someone that's willing to do it is pretty hard to find, because there's lots of people that just want the job, but they don't actually want to do it. But that's a hard thing to find. But I think I've got a pretty good staff. What I got now, I have my sisters work for me. My mum helps me out every now and again. But yeah, and then I've got about 6 or 7 proper staff that are working as much as I can have them, really.
Yeah, awesome. That's quite good. Again, a good team keeps the ship running, so that's awesome. What, as a business owner, what are things that are running behind your mind at all times? I know I know it's hard because you don't want to think about the negatives and you don't want to have these anxieties and whatnot, but are there any things that make you anxious, or anything that you always have in the back of your mind that you kind of have to catch yourself, or, watch what you're thinking?
For me, I'm so focused on the finance side of it. I just can't stop it. I'm constantly looking at how much money we're making per day. Have I made enough money to cover this? I'm constantly working out different things, and if I make this much amount of money in the day, how much am I going to make personally? How much do I have to give to my staff? It's just something that I've just can't stop thinking about, which is, as a business owner, I'm sure every business owner will be the same. It's just things that you just can't help but think about all the time, which is something that I didn't really expect starting a cafe. When I first started, no experience in business, I thought I was just going to be another worker. But there's so much more to it, and it's hard to get yourself out of it once you're in it. So, for example, if I'm off for a day, I'm checking my phone at orders, making sure things are going right, messaging my staff, are things going okay? Do we need anything from the shop? You just always have to be involved, which is, I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I guess we'll soon find out.
Yeah. I think I've talked to a few people about this on the podcast itself, and it sounds like it's quite similar to, a lot of business owners, and especially in the beginning, always being on and needing to find that balance. And it's hard to say if it will ever turn off, because you can look at it one way, and you can look at it where, those business owners that aren't in it all the time, are they really good business owners? But at the same time, it's like, are those business owners that are taking time from themselves doing better in the long run? I think it's something that, you'll probably learn, and nobody knows except yourself, really. What kind of things are you planning for in the future?
Eventually I want to have a chain, which is something that I'm looking towards, but we're talking a long time down the track. I've got to establish myself first, and I try not to think too far ahead. I like to keep myself present and just make what I've got now 100% before I put my eggs into another basket. But there is potential. The reason I signed at the new place, my lease, there is potential to have a few more around Adelaide in years coming. And they're pretty keen on keeping the same sort of businesses around in the same little hub. So that's something that is down the line, but nothing I've thought about yet at all.
Yeah, looking for the now, really. How far do you look ahead, usually?
At the moment, for me, I'm looking towards the summer coming, which could end at the end of the school holidays, end of January, start of Feb. That's really as far as I get at the moment, because I'm hoping to be extremely busy, but if I'm not, then what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. That's fair. And yeah, that's quite a daunting thought, I guess. What are some things that you are planning for wanting to happen during the summer, the upcoming summer?
Just gaining more customers, like loyalty card customers that come in sort of every second day. You just get to know their name. You know what they have. One thing that I like to do is know what people have. So I see their car pull up, make it for them, and it's just that little, like, they walk in the door, I've already made it. It's a little thanks for that. That it goes. It's only a little small thing, but it helps you retain customers and helps you build a good sort of name for yourself. And that's something that I've tried. Obviously, you can't do it for everyone. You can't please everyone, but I try my best to do it as good as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's quite important. And it goes a long way, as customers, noticing little things like that is quite important. Now, Bailey, what kind of things, I guess, at your current location, what kind of things do you, I guess, look for when you're wanting change and things like that? Like, I think I see it all the time, businesses, adding new additions to their business and whatnot. What kind of things are you, or where do you want to be before you start adding more, if you know what I mean?
I want to just establish myself as somewhere that is a go-to location before I start doing things out of the ordinary, which, it's actually really hard to gauge on, because if you do things out of the ordinary, it might bring in the extra couple people to try it, but then if it doesn't meet their standard, they're not going to come back. So for me, what I think about is get them in first, impress them, and then bring them back with something different. But that will come with time. I'm not sure really much else I'd do too crazy, because I like to keep it nice and just simple, and things that are easy to do, easy to get out quick.
Yeah, I guess you'll have a feel for it being your business. When you want to do anything new, if you wanted to. Bailey, when you're looking past, the since you've started the business, the old location, the new location, you've already mentioned a bunch of things, but what are some things that you've really taken away from this whole experience, and what things do you, I guess, now know that you didn't when you first started the cafe?
I've learnt a bucket load of things around life and taking risks, and sometimes risks don't pay off. So I've learnt that you have to have two sides to what you do all the time. It might go well, but it might not. So you got to be prepared you got to really prepare yourself mentally that it might not go well. And that's something that's hard to get your head around, especially for me, having such a big space, such a young age. If it doesn't go well, I might put myself in a financial problem in coming years when I'm trying to buy a home or trying to start a family. If the cafe weren't to fly, which I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but but that's the thing, you have to have different options if it didn't go well. So just finding other things that I like doing just in case. But hopefully there doesn't have to be. But you never know.
No, but it's good to have that realization, I guess. You never want to have that in the back of your mind or to have that mindset, but I guess you can't be 100% naive, you know what I mean? Now tell us and tell the listeners what a day looks like, as a business owner like yourself, because it sounds like you're always on, even when the cafe is not open or even when you're not there. What does a day generally look like for you?
For me, I open up at 6:30, so I've got to be up and ready with the tables and chairs out 6:30 on the dot. So I've got to be there sort of 10 past 6. I'm about only 10 minutes away from the cafe, so it's not too crazy, but leave home about 6 o'clock. And just a normal day's work for me would be, I'm normally either on the coffee machine or I do a little bit of cooking myself. At the moment, I've only got myself and one other staff during the day because I can sort of do most of it myself. I just need a little bit of a hand here and there. which I get my sister to do pretty much full time with me, and she enjoys it, and I enjoy being able to give her a job. Other than that, we close up at 3:00, so lots of cleaning, lots of doing the same thing every day, which is something that I've learnt that's going to happen for the next 20 years. I'm going to be mopping the same floor every night for 20 years. After that, I'm still getting, because my phone number is on the website and Google Maps and stuff. So if people call up for an order or want to book a table, my phone's always ringing. Even when I'm closed, still getting phone calls asking what time do you open or are you closed. But and then on the outside, I still got to run the business with the books. So that takes a lot of time than I thought. And that's just finding the time to do it. Because if it's just me and one staff in the cafe, it's hard for me to sit down on my laptop for an hour and do it because I need to be working. But so I try and do that stuff on the outside, which means I'm getting home and working again, which is something that I've learnt to just sort of deal with. But yeah, hard work is, I've always been happy to do it, but different types of hard work. Obviously, it's not physical, but it's long hours and mentally straining, which is something that I've adapted to, sort of. But there's still lots of room for improvement.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it just like anything, it's a learning curve, right? Especially if it's a newer thing, or especially even if it's something that you've done for 5 to 10 years. There's probably all things that you can learn, really. When it comes to like staffing and things like that, what does that look like? Like how do you, I guess, plan for a weekend, let's say? Because most weekends I think are busy generally, but like you were saying, you could have a busier weekend or a holiday or this and that. What kind of things do you look for with staffing and food prep and all of that kind of stuff?
It's very different from weekdays to weekends. Okay. Weekends we're doing sort of double to triple the amount of sales we're doing during the week, which is something that I try and prep for. For example, on a Thursday, I'll get lots of little things done that take a bit more time. And then Friday we'll prep again. Saturday we get in first thing in the morning prepping. So about sort of 9 o'clock is when it kicks off on the weekends. But the rushes only sort of go for 2-3 hours. But it's constant 2-3 hours of craziness, and then it sort of dies off a little bit, gives us a chance to clean up a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. When you think about the customers and creating good products for the customers to buy and whatnot, you've already mentioned the little things that go into the coffee, the little things that go into the menu. But what are some things that when you were creating all of this, or things now that you think about versus when you first opened the coffee, what kind of things do you look for when you want to create like a good customer experience, let's say?
I've just started some new juices that I got in that were like they have my custom branding on it, which is something that I thought was out of the ordinary and something that not many places do. It only happened like a couple of days ago, but I used to have these other just regular juices out of a glass, and they were just they were called Besser, are used. But now all my juices are custom branded, so they say the Dunes on them. They have every single ingredient on the front of it. They're nicely branded, and they go with my cafe. So that's something like little small things like that. I just put them on display because they're branded for my cafe. They look good. They're something that they're eye appealing. Something that customers are going to come in and look at and, well, potentially buy. If it doesn't look good, people won't buy it. So I try and create like things, for example, the custom branding that you're not going to see if you walk somewhere else. It gives you sort of that extra little edge.
Yeah. What kind of things, I guess, when you when you first started this business versus now, what kind of things do you like? Where's your mindset now when you have this experience having a bigger cafe, things like that. Of course, you've probably evolved as a business owner. What kind of things do you think of now that you didn't back, 2 years ago or whenever?
It's just timing and pace of work and how I can be quicker in little things. For example, getting an order out 2 minutes quicker than I did last year is something that makes a crazy difference. And just having things ready to go to allow me to do that. So doing extra prep during the week gives me a good chance at getting things out quicker on a Saturday, which is something that I'm always thinking about. It's so much little things like that go into running a cafe, and day-to-day basis, I'm always sort of thinking, what can I do next to upgrade the experience of a customer?
Yeah, yeah. How do you and have you even found the art of finding things to do for you? You know what I mean? Like outside of the cafe, how do you kind of spend time for you and to kind of chill out and whatnot?
The cafe is something I've sort of it's my thing. I like it. So that sort of is my hobby. My hobby is building my brand, and I think if you don't enjoy your own business, there's really no point in doing it. So that's the reason I started it so early. Was I always liked to run my own pace, and I can't really imagine working for anyone else anymore, which is I enjoy what I do, and I'm passionate for what I do, which is, I think, something that I've just got to keep going at, because I'm so passionate about it. Because I don't want to get stuck in a hole of something I don't like doing. And I end up working for 60 years for the same bloke that I don't like.
Yeah, that's, you have to like what you're doing, and it's a interesting topic, because these days you hear all the time people complain about, where they're going, and they're spending nearly half of their life, like you were saying. So starting up, whether it be starting up something that you love or, doing something that you love, it's quite important. But, earlier you mentioned that you do kind of take inspiration from a lot of other cafes and a lot of other places and whatnot. I guess now that you have this business, do you find that you compare, yourself very much? How does that kind of play with you?
Not too much, actually.
That's good.
It's more the comparisons social media wise, which is something I'm trying to work on at the moment. I've just actually got someone to do my social media for me, because I found I wasn't something that I was very good at. And for a cafe, social media is something that's going to push you over the top. For example, someone like Homeboy, the new one, I used to be out Harndorf, but now he's Adelaide. Young guy like me. He has 400,000 followers on Instagram, cafe owner, and it just pumps the social media. And I've taken little things from him to sort of integrate into my socials. And I spoke to the guy that does my socials, and he looks around at all different cafes and what they do and tries to base it off everything. So it's not like you're copying or trying to be someone else. You're building our own brand to get people to follow or visit us in real life.
Yeah, and I guess social media is so big these days, especially in businesses like cafes and whatnot. And it's probably where a lot of businesses do struggle, like a lot of older businesses maybe, because like you were saying, it can push you to kind of the next level. I think I have heard of is it in Hondorf or yeah, I think I have heard of that guy. Actually popped up on my TikTok or something. But
There you go.
yeah, but just like that, it you kind of need to have the correct socials, and especially if you want to hit a certain demographic, or I'm a millennial. I mean, it hit me, so it can go anywhere really. Now you've already mentioned some thoughts and some goals that you have of the future. It's quite hard because you don't want to look too far ahead and whatnot, but is there anything that you that you don't want out of the future? You know, is there anything that you're kind of planning? I actually, don't want to go this route because I've already done it. Or what kind of things have you learned that don't do anymore, that you don't want to continue to do?
I don't want to hate what I do. Is the biggest thing. I don't want to hate walking into my own doors. I want to enjoy what I do all the time, and I think that's something that I've learnt over sort of 2 years, that the smaller place was a little bit of a chore for me to do. Small, crampy place, like I said. It's hard to be in all day. So for somewhere like I am now, it's nice, opening space, something that I've built myself. So I take a lot of pride in where I am and what I do day to day.
Yeah, cool. Where do you, I guess, pull inspiration from, whether it be cafes, whether it be not even cafes, like other business owners or whatnot? Is there anything that you or anybody that you follow on a regular basis or that you go to for inspiration?
Like I said before, it's just lots of inspiration social media wise. Because I feel like I've got the customer base now. It's just the extras that, like you said before, that you can gain from social media just to give you that little extra kick. But other than that,
Yeah, because I feel like Adelaide is the type of place where, it's not that big, so people will drive 20 minutes from the hills, to check out a cafe that they've seen on Instagram. I know I've drove to Hondorf, or I've drove down south or something to check out something that I've seen on Instagram or whatnot. So it's a very different vibe here in Adelaide than it is maybe in other states, really. Now, Bailey, we have something on the podcast called the Vulnerability Corner. There are 5 questions here out in front of me. All 5 questions are just a general question that relates to vulnerability, basically. What I'm going to get you to do is pick number 1 through 5. I'll read out the question and, answer really however you want. You can relate it to your business. You can relate it to personal. It doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, pick a number 1 through 5 for me.
Number 4, please.
4. All righty. So I'll give you the question too if you want to have beside you. But what it says is, what is the personal quality of which you're most ashamed of? I'll leave it right there for you if you want to give it another read, but take your time. These ones are quite difficult, I think.
A little bit,
yeah. Yeah, and again, you can relate it to your business. You can relate it to just yourself as a person. It doesn't really matter.
Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to get the question right, but for me, I don't want to feel ashamed of what I'm doing and who I've become. Being in such a stressful environment, like I said before, with staffing, I don't want to be ashamed of how I speak to my staff or how I allow them to work. I want to be someone that they can come to talk about. Doesn't have to be work related. And I think I'm trying to build a sort of relationship with each one of my staff in a different way, because they're all different in their own way. They all do different things in their spare time. So I try and take a little bit of time out of my day to be a friend more than a boss. So I just, if I find myself yelling at them for something that they couldn't control, or just something that doesn't even matter. Yeah. I don't want to feel ashamed of who I've become. In a sense.
Yeah, because it's quite difficult when you're in a highly stressful position like you are. Because again, I've worked at a restaurant and I've been in situations where it can be quite stressful. You talk to people a certain way because you're so stressed, you have 100 things going on, but at the end of the day, you're you're a family and, people understand, but it's good as an owner to hear that, you have these kind of things in the back of your mind. Because again, as a staff that I was, you kind of sometimes think, they just talk to me that certain way. They might not be happy or whatnot, but if you have that kind of thought process, sometimes stress just kind of comes out in certain ways, really. Now, Bailey, where can people find you? Where can people follow the cafe? Come visit the cafe. Plug in all of those on the podcast, please.
Underscore the Dunes on Instagram, and we are 26 Circuit Drive, by entries off of West Lakes Boulevard. thedunescafe.com.au is the website. You can find us anywhere: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We've got it all.
Cool. Awesome. And that will be in the show notes, everybody. So you can definitely go and follow all of that and visit the Dunes. Thank you so much, Bailey, for coming on the podcast. This was great. And definitely everybody go check out the Dunes, and Bailey, we'll see you there.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That's all right. Alrighty, everybody. That is it for today's episode. Once again, if you are living here in Adelaide, be sure to check out the Dunes Cafe. I actually went today. I think Bailey has just updated his menu because I had the burger and it was fucking phenomenal. Check out the Dunes Cafe. It is in Hendon here in Adelaide. Even if you are not in Adelaide, follow the Dunes on Instagram. Before you head on off, please give this show a 5-star button click. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, you can do it there. It really helps out the show. It takes a second. Thank you all for doing that, and I will talk to you on the next episode.